Hi, you're listening to UNS Talks, a podcast by the international architecture and design firm UNStudio. Hosted today by me, Lucy Pressel. In this episode, we're exploring UNStudio's approach to and research on urban activation and the many ways we can envision a dynamic and flexible organization of space to promote healthier and ultimately happier cities. We're sitting down with colleagues from our UNS urban team, Olga and Valentina, to discuss all matters of urban design that will get us closer to answering the question of how can we design healthier and happier cities? Olga and Valentina, thanks so much for coming on our podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, thank you.
And to start, would you briefly share a little bit about your backgrounds, where you're from, how long you've been working for UNStudio?
Okay, hello. My name is Valentina Amaya. I am a landscape designer at UNStudio a bit longer than 2 years. My background is, I did a master's in urban planning, focused on large scale landscape. So it's a little bit mostly understood as a sort of landscape urbanism, which is a very interesting topic. And I am originally from Colombia. And yes.
Great.
And I'm Olga. I come from Greece. I studied there architecture for 5 years, but within my studies, I fell in love with cities. And then I did a master's in Stockholm on sustainable urban planning and design.
Okay.
And I'm working for UNStudio for almost 3 years now in the urban team, the urban unit, with Valentina and other colleagues.
Great. I can't wait for our conversation. Well, actually, for the first time in history, we're experiencing that more than half of the population is living in urban compared to rural areas. So urbanization is on the rise, and therefore also the need to design and rethink our cities. Why is it so important for UNStudio to have an urban team, and what is the UNS Urban's approach to designing cities?
Well, I think being urban designers, we can argue that every architecture firm, every architecture practice should have an urban design approach and urban design perspective and experts working around it. And we see that it becomes increasingly important also for UNStudio, that we expand our services within urban design. We put more focus on urban context, on cities as a whole system, as a complex system. And this is what the urban team is trying to do. So we often collaborate with architecture teams, and we give our perspective in their projects, in architectural projects, but we also work on our own master planning projects or different scales, from city scale to neighborhood scale to public space scale.
Yeah, and I think as urban planners and urban designers, I think it's really our role to enhance places where people can meet, when people can socialize, being cities now the hubs for where people live. So it's really important that we make these very quality spaces, like with good quality, really at the human level. And I think that's mostly our role, to really imagine cities as better places for citizens. So.
Yes, and as you said, all the more people live in cities, and that will increase even more in the future. So we're questioning, how can we make cities healthier places that people can actually enjoy every moment, not to see them as just places to live and work, but also places that we can create, we can play, we can interact. And through urban design, that's what we're thriving for, to make fun cities.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you also told me before that in your work you take, or the UNS urban team is taking a very interdisciplinary approach to work, right? You're exploring different networks and systems, and you also have, I think, a background of different disciplines of people working in your team. Maybe you can touch upon a little bit of this, like what different disciplines do we see mingling in the urban team, and what different approaches when it comes to network systems are you taking?
Yeah, currently in the urban team, we are an interdisciplinary group of professionals. We have data analysis, we have, of course, urban planners, and we also usually we make partnerships, and we also make collaborations with other with other stakeholders, with ecologists, with landscape architects. So it's really going, with sociologists as well. So it's really going into looking through all these layers that has like the city itself. The city is very complex, and then we really have to involve very special disciplines in a moment that we are targeting a certain area, certain project.
Okay.
Yes, and we are really looking into this collaboration. So we do have an interdisciplinary team, and everybody has their specialty, let's say, and also their interest. But we are also trying to find the right specialist for every project. So whether this is a biologist or a mobility expert, and we found that the most beautiful projects come out of these type of collaborations.
Nice. So it's also project dependent on which kind of disciplines you require for that specific project, right?
Yes.
Depending on the needs.
And the most common, I would say, is nature-related specializations. This has become a kind of basic parameter in on all our projects, from the smallest one to the biggest one. And then mobility as well is an important topic. And then depending on the project, many other specializations come into play.
Okay. And how does the architecture world come into play? Like, how do urban design and architecture actually influence each other? And could you have one without the other?
That's a tough question. The approach in the team, but also my personal opinion, is that there is no difference between the two. Architecture and urban design is the same discipline, the same backgrounds, and they are part of the same organism and the same system. It's just that we look on different scales when we talk about urbanism, and different scales when we talk about architecture. For example, a project in urban design can span from city planning to regional planning, maybe to city planning and to a neighborhood scale. But then architecture is mostly about the components, so the building component, the group of buildings, and the public space around it. So we look in a different scale, but they're all part of the same complex system, I would say.
And one informs the other. So you cannot have architecture without urban planning and the other way around. So it's really, they work together hand in hand, informing each other. So it's really like your last questions. I don't think it's possible to detach them.
To
or
detach
like,
them,
yes, exactly. No.
You need both disciplines.
And I would say the best projects we've worked for are the projects that when architects and urban designers collaborate within the office, and then exciting things come up always. And exciting conversations as well.
A lot of different minds are mingling.
Yes.
It's great. And nowadays, all over the world, urban activation is being practiced to invigorate populations to engage with the cities and with fellow citizens. What does urban activation entail, and how do you target it in your projects?
Yes, in many different ways. So urban activation is part of every project. Like if a project doesn't entail urban activation, that it's not a successful project in our viewpoint. And then we look into different systems and different networks within a city, and how do we use the systems in order to activate an urban area, or how do we actually design in a way that these systems can function better and can be activated. So traditionally, let's say, urban activation is mostly related with program and land uses, maybe with public space and placemaking. What we are trying really to look into traffic, mobility, urban form, nature, many different components that actually make people want to come together in public space or in the cities. Yes, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, any examples?
Yeah, I think we all aim to have really active neighborhoods, cities. Really, I don't think not even from the urban planning, but really as a sort of a citizen perspective. The way you experience a city is really important. That is activated. That is really, that you really have moments that you meet people, that you cycle in a safe area. So I think we look at the way that we design cities in a very personal level as well. So I think that's why urban activation is so important. It's also encouraging for us to really design places that we also would like to be there. So
Yes.
that's
I love
mostly
that.
yeah.
It's a
Very
good
often,
motivation.
yes, exactly. And very often we kick off a project thinking, how would we like to walk from our home to work? And how would we like to go from work to a bar for a drink with friends afterwards? What is the route we will take? What kind of conditions will make us feel safe and will make us feel also nice throughout the day and stress free? And when you put yourself there and you imagine what are your preferences, then the answers are actually very easy.
Yeah.
We read lately a book named Happy Cities,
Okay.
and it's mentioned there that the space that people tend to walk slower and stay and make a stop is 1/2 meters away from their doorstep. So this is actually where neighbors tend to meet, to interact, to be a bit more open to the interaction. And yes, we thought maybe in this specific project that we're doing now, we should think a bit more on how to design this kind of edge, this buffer. And it gave us really inspiring ideas, design ideas.
Yeah.
Nice.
And mostly because sometimes people think that urban planning is a really large scale sort of approach. Do you think it's a regional design? But I think in a way we have really we are transforming into sort of more intimate kind of search of spaces, like Olga mentioned. Like, it's not about these vast spaces, it's really about really try to find within the urban scale those smaller spaces that make you feel more human, like the little plaza, a courtyard, a pocket park. These are the spaces that for us are very inspiring to really put more kind of focus, attention, and effort to design it with good quality, because these are the spaces where we felt more comfortable, like we felt more
Warm.
yes, it's warm, it's intimate. Yes, and
It's
this is
good,
where
yeah.
basically the magic happens indeed,
Yes.
because it's so small that you really feel.
And I like what you said, intimate, because that's something we are trying to design for intimacy.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
design for social interactions, for the unexpected, for people to meet unexpectedly, and then social relationships to start happening because of good design or for well-designed cities.
Yeah.
That's so cool to hear, and I think it's even more challenging now that we have more people gathering, like more and more people gathering on a smaller space. And then how do you actually make them also socialize with each other? Because I love that you bring up this topic from a psychological point of view. Actually, like psychological research is showing us that healthier and happier cities are closely linked to more social cities. So to provide opportunities for social interaction and social connection is very, very crucial, because you don't want social isolation that leads to, not a well-designed city in terms of mental health, because we also
Yes.
see more mental health problems living in urban compared to rural areas. For example, there's 40% higher risk of depression, or 20% higher risk of anxiety disorders in cities compared to rural areas. So I think what you say, thinking about this intimacy and personal approach to city design, is very, very crucial to also buffer and prevent mental health issues. That's actually another question I wanted to address to you. Um, how much are you thinking about designing for mentally healthy cities, and what, from your perspective, can be done from a designer perspective to design for more mentally healthy areas? Big question.
It's a big question. It's also a big topic that we are thinking about in every single project, every single day. So health is really a big thing for UNStudio generally, but also for the urban projects. And health is not just physical health, as you said, it's also mental health, it's also social health. It's how a society is healthy, performs in a healthy way. And there are so many factors that affect health in the city, but there are some standardized factors that we can actually play with and we can influence. For example, nature in city, and Valentina, who is a professional, an expert in nature, can say more. But we do see with data, data-based results that nature in proximity to us can actually bring great results, and this is a practice that every designer, I think, takes into account today, luckily. Also, when we talk about mobility, walkability is key for our physical health, for our mental health. Like if you are able, if I am able as Olga to walk from home to work in a pleasant route with tree canopies, with shading, climate comfort, and I interact with a couple of neighbors and I see some animals on the way, that will reduce stress levels immediately. We also attended lately a workshop about how to design for increased endorphins. So how can we take design decisions that will increase, that will actually enhance our endorphin increase, which is the, correct me if I'm wrong, the happiness. How you the happiness hormone, right? Yes. So, for example, if we place animals on the eye level, like a nest of a bird on the eye level rather than above us or underneath, then endorphin levels go high super fast. So there are all these very small things, little things that, I found very exciting to think of as an urban designer.
And little things, but that can have a huge influence later
Exactly.
on.
Yeah, exactly. I think in a way we also think about healthy cities, and in we have this idea of the social, environmental, nature, kind of healthy, ecological level of being healthy in a city. And like all these factors that Olga mentioned is mostly from the experience that you have in your everyday life, because basically your everyday is really shaped by the way you move, by the way you commute, by the way you find like opportunities for pick up your kids from school, these kind of things that really shape your everyday life. And also is the topic about how active is your city, how active is your lifestyle. And I think slowly we are trying to really kind of slow down the way we move, so we kind of really moving from this kind of car oriented lifestyle towards a more active lifestyle. I think maybe this is kind of our main role, and what we can mostly do as urban planners, as a landscape architect, is really encourage people to move more, to be more outdoor, because this kind of outdoor living really improve your quality of life. So it's simple things that it really change your everyday life, and that's something that really can affect your health. So that's things that we really think about, like how to cycle, how your bike
Easy
lane
in
looks like.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Not so easy in other cities.
Lucky enough here. But also, these are like the soft factors that we cannot easily measure. Like we work with intuition towards that, of course, with specialists. But there are other sides, other elements that we can actually measure. And for a healthy city, for example, we can measure air quality, we can measure noise pollution, we can measure climate comfort. And all these things can give us very tangible data on how healthy an urban environment is. And this is where all the specialists come in to help us design based in real data.
Also
with real
their
data
research, probably, that you can then
Exactly.
analyze or use their insights from a
Exactly.
research driven approach. But how difficult is it to apply these interventions in existing cities? Because, for example, when we talk about the car infrastructure, I think it's a big topic in our modern cities. I think most of the cities have been designed for cars, or like putting cars really in the front. How difficult is it then to apply these interventions?
I believe that this intervention should come from the bottom up, and just playing God, designing a nice master plan, a nice city, car free, fully walkable. It's not what we should be doing today. It's nice to listen to the crowd, to listen to the people, and see what the needs of them are, what the needs of a city. And luckily, especially in the Netherlands, we see that city really try to improve health. They're very open and looking forward looking to this kind of changes, for example, to make cities more walkable, healthier, lesser pollution, noise pollution. So then working together with them is what we do and is what can be successful. Then we work also in places that this is less, let's say, accepted, or car is a big part of the culture, and then we're trying to improve existing conditions rather than impose new systems. And you kind of show also a vision to the future, and that's it's big part of our work, not to necessarily design a concrete plan that will give a solution, but rather visualize a very kind of visionary image of the future on how the future can look like. And then maybe you're provocative, you trigger some questions, and maybe some arguments, some conflict, but out of that a good dialogue can come up, and that's big part of our work as well in UNStudio.
Yeah, one colleague of us described it in a very inspirational way, that we basically our work is to inspire and kind of start a conversation. Is even like if we, because actually we also aim for a very simple kind of way of communication, because we are really like, because our clients is the citizens, is really about the people, and everybody needs to understand the kind of language that we are speaking. So we inspire by images, and they can be just a way to trigger people how to envision a different future, a different scenario in the same context. So that's basically kind of our main task, is about really inspire and really to let people to imagine something different, or like if it's the same, why is the same. So I think is kind of like our everyday job is indeed not impose a master plan. That's really never really gonna work. Is really working with people and really see like their their reactions against whatever
their dreams also.
The dreams.
Sometimes they you can provoke a conversation with a nice rendering image, and then people can start saying, but what about this, what about that, what
they also learn a lot from them, because at the end they are the ones who live in that environment, in that neighborhood. It's not part of your everyday life. So that's basically our main job kind of as well, like really really kind of learn from the citizens in a way, and trigger imagination in a way.
I love that. I love your visionary and innovative approach, and wanting to inspire different ways of thinking about alternative futures and how to design cities. How would the ideal, I don't know if that would exist, but ideal in a sense contemporary modern healthy city look like? If you would draw it out now by words, like how would it look like to you?
Gosh.
Big question.
Dangerous question.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we could see it from a personal perspective. I can answer as a kind of citizen more than an urban designer, and I would say, yes, an ideal city would be indeed a healthy city, which means that I can walk, I can meet friends at the public space at any time of the day. I can feel safe as a woman also. So maybe a feminist city is important, that can include everyone and be open to everyone, because cities are designed mainly for a certain type of person, all these years, and now this is changing, but the cities are already formed. So I think yes, that playfulness that a healthy, happy, feminist city can bring up is for me very good, very important values, and that's as an urban designer I'm also fighting towards
Yes.
that.
Yes, I think the same in a way for me, as of course as a landscape architect. I really believe in sort of this kind of nature city, in this kind of city that stop kind of detaching and putting a barrier, like here starts the city, here starts nature. I think for me an ideal city is indeed with all these factors that brings all this social liveliness, but I think the nature as well really plays a super important role in a way that a city really introduce multiple ways where nature can really play an important role and is part of your everyday life. Not that you have to go to a destination to see nature, but nature is part of your city. So I really
You bring the nature to
yeah,
you.
exactly. It's kind of really the reconciliation between the city and nature, because I think we have really make a lot of effort to detach it, and I think that for me is really an ideal city, that I can go to a park in less than a 10 minutes walk, or that I really see trees from my window. These kind of things I think is something that I really believe is a good quality city.
And also thinking about different types of users, as we said
Yeah.
earlier. For example, age-friendly cities. How can people age in a city? Because now we see that people tend to leave the cities when they reach a certain age, but that can change. That should change. So we can only talk about better cities when these cities are for everyone, for kids to play outside.
Yeah.
Like kids don't do it anymore. For example, I hear stories about Amsterdam that 30 years ago kids could safely play everywhere in the city, and now it's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So
Do
I
you
think
know why? Or like a
I
reason why
cannot
that
safely
could
say
be?
why with certainty, but I think it has a lot to do also with the increase of the population, with the traffic.
Traffic, yeah.
Safety issues and
Safety.
also,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that people have less intimacy to each other. They are a bit more detached from their fellow citizen, from the neighbor, their neighbor. So I think this sense of trust is very important. The sense of intimacy, for example.
Yeah, and I find it quite ironic that we have growing cities, but maybe more socially isolated cities where you
Yes.
actually feel lonely. So
Mm.
that's kind of ironic, but I think it underlines really the point of that we need to make sure we design for these social contact moments and opportunities to really mingle with each other, also for diversity of people, right? What you just said, like
Yes.
old people, young people. I think this is also really major question and challenge. How do you design for a diversity of people?
Yes.
Yes.
But I think it's great that you introduce all these different disciplines into your work and all these different minds that can together work on answering these really big questions. And I hear a lot of urbanists and also people from other disciplines even saying that this urban change might be the global change and challenge for the
Yeah.
next 30
Indeed.
years. So really
Hopefully.
something we have to consider. As we're approaching the end of our episode, I have two more questions that are related a bit more to personal matters. What is one of your favorite urban design projects here at UNStudio, and why?
I can mention one that is not primarily an urban design project. It is a master plan. It's the Arnhem Station in the city of Arnhem. So UNStudio designed the station area and the master plan of the area. And I really love the way public space was conceived because it's a train station. Like we cannot we don't necessarily think of train stations as playful and creative spaces, but Arnhem Station really became this place where now you can see kids playing, skating, people making Instagram posts, not just because of the architectural elements, but because of these small scale public spaces around it that really activated the area, and they made it the heart of the city, an icon for the city. Yeah, I really loved how their architecture interplays with urban design, the urban scale, and really creates a special moment in the city. I think that's a successful example.
Yeah. At this moment, unfortunately, we cannot share too much details about current projects that we are working. I think UNStudio has really interesting campuses where they have introduced nature and places for socialization. Um, like Singapore,
University
is it?
campus.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And in this moment, we're using this kind of same principles that are used in this in this kind of spaces. In, for example, we have a very interesting street project where we are really kind of shifting the idea of thinking that a street is as a road towards a street that it becomes really again a place to meet, to socialize,
Public space.
public space.
Yeah.
So I think same way as this, for example, this university is not only a place that you go to study, it's really a place that you really go to interact, to socialize. So I think we're using all these tools that we really try to use at the UNStudio to think about multiple levels of interaction and socialization and really putting nature in the foreground. I think that's something that we really are pushing forward, and that's very exciting that in the coming projects we hopefully can share soon.
Great. I love these approaches of turning like a metro station or a campus into more than that. You know, it's almost like we're going beyond its functioning and really turning it into a hub of life for the people and populations. I think this is a really cool, innovative way of thinking and approaching new city designs. And as a last question, what are exciting developments or some developments in urban design that are very exciting for you?
Um, I think that the way we are rethinking forgotten infrastructures, post-industrial sites, I think those projects that kind of rethink a new function in the urban scheme, I think that's very inspiring as well, because like we have all mentioned it during this conversation, I think cities really need to kind of rethink this kind of infrastructure that are not used anymore to really provide places for living, places for working. So I'm personally really interested by these sort of post-industrial sites, waterfronts, all harbors that are forgotten, and they really think about how to reactivate them and how they can become places where you kind of live your life. So I think those projects for me are really interesting, and I think there is a lot of a lot of these kind of typologies of urban spaces that are being done, and that's inspiring a lot for me. Yes. So
Yeah. I would also like to mention the new ways of living. So
yes.
this could be a new way of living, like a post-industrial area,
Yeah.
and this is super interesting. But especially in the Netherlands, that more than half or 2/3 of the country lives below water level, sea level. Yes, there are a lot of projects that explore how we can live on the water, so floating developments. Yes, for example, in Amsterdam and Eiburg, there is this floating neighborhood, which is amazing. It's a project that is fully floated on water with light structures, light metal structures, and people live there. You should definitely visit it.
It's really
an
nice.
awesome place, and you can see this experimental element in urban design. So how we can think together with nature instead of blocking it away. So for years now in the Netherlands, people are building dikes, impressive dikes to block the sea away, the water away, and it's been very successful. But now we've started to thinking how we can live with water maybe instead of blocking it away.
And how you learn from these dynamics of
exactly.
You better learn from dynamics of water and live with it rather than push it in a way. It's true. That's very nice.
I love that.
Yes.
That's great. Well, thank you both so much for this super interesting conversation. It's been great to hear all your insights on how urban design can really help to shape more healthy and happier, ultimately happier cities. I think it's so important to consider with the rise of urbanization. And we're so excited to hear more and see about all the amazing work that you're doing with the UNS urban team.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
And thank you all for tuning in today. We hope that you can take something away on how urban design can really shape the character of a city and ultimately make it healthier and happier. Please subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media so you don't miss out on any episodes. And we'll see you next time on UNS Talks. Ciao.